Hi, I'm Sylvia Tate. Welcome to my video. Today I want to talk about why do we eat when we are not feeling hungry and what to do instead. So, have you ever stood in front of the fridge or opened the cupboard and reached for a chocolate? But if you're really honest with yourself, you were not feeling actually hungry. You've just had dinner and your body didn't really need food. But yet something inside you still wanted to eat. And if that sounds familiar, I want you to know something. You're not weak. You are not broken. And you do not lack a willpower. You are experiencing something that literally millions and millions of women experience every single day. And it's called emotional eating. And today I want to help you to understand what's really happening. Because once you understand, it's easier to create the change. For years, I thought emotional eating was my problem. I thought food was my problem. I thought if I could be more disciplined, more motivated, more committed, everything will finally fall into place. But eventually I realized something very important. Food was never the problem. Food was the solution. And now that might sound quite strange, but stay with me. Because every behavior serves a purpose. Every behavior is trying to meet your need, including eating. So the question is not, why am I eating? The question is, what am I really hungry for? Because the answer often isn't the food itself. Sometimes we are hungry for comfort. Sometimes we are hungry for rest. Sometimes we are hungry for connection. Sometimes we are hungry for fun. Sometimes we are hungry for appreciation. Sometimes we are just hungry simply for a break. And the challenge is that food is quick. Food is available and works immediately. You feel stressed, you eat. You feel overwhelmed, you eat. You feel lonely, you eat. You feel bored, you eat. And for a few minutes, it works. You feel better. The problem is that the relief doesn't last for too long. And the emotion returns. And what happens then? You eat again. Because the real issue was never addressed. The cycle keeps continuing. This is why emotional eating can be so frustrating. Because you are trying to solve a problem with a physical solution. Imagine you've had a difficult day. Work was stressful, the kids were very demanding, the house is messy, your energy is gone, you just feel overwhelmed, you feel exhausted. You sit down with a packet of biscuits. At first glance, it looks like a food issue, but is it? Or is it an exhaustion issue, a stress issue, a self-care issue? Because if the real problem is exhaustion, food can never fix it. The same happens with loneliness, for example. I've worked with women who most of the time basically live taking care of everyone else. Yet they feel deep down very disconnected, unseen, underappreciated. Food becomes a companion. It becomes a comfort, a reward. Not because they are hungry, but because they're trying to fill an emotional gap. And here is the thing that most diets completely ignore. You cannot simply remove a behavior that is meeting an important emotional need. You have to replace it. If food is giving you comfort, where else can comfort come from? If food is giving you certainty, where else can that certainty come from? If food is giving you pleasure, where else can that pleasure come from? This is why lasting change requires more than a meal plan. It requires self-awareness. One exercise I often recommend is incredibly simple. The next time you find yourself reaching for a food, just pause. Pause for one moment. and ask yourself, am I physically hungry? What am I feeling right now? What do I actually need? And the answers might surprise you. You might discover you are stressed. You might discover you are angry. You might discover you feel like you need a hug. You are a bit lonely. You might discover you are simply tired. Awareness creates a choice, and a choice creates change. Because once you recognize what is really going on in your head, you can actually start meeting your needs in a slightly different way. Maybe what you need is a walk. Maybe what you need is a phone call to a friend. Maybe what you need is just a few minutes of quiet. Maybe what you need is a bath, or to read a good book, or to go to bed earlier. Maybe what you need is to have that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. The point is that the food isn't necessarily bad, but the food cannot become your only coping strategy. One of the biggest transformations I see in my clients is when they stop asking, how do I stop emotional eating? And start asking, what do I need right now? And how am I meeting that need? That question changes everything, because it moves you from self-judgment to self-understanding. And self-understanding is when the real change begins. Remember, emotional eating isn't a character flaw, it's information. And it's your mind and body trying to tell you something. The goal is not to fight it, the goal is to listen, to become curious, to understand the message behind the behavior. Because when you are meeting your emotional needs directly, the urge to use the food is kind of losing its power. And that's when the weight loss becomes so much easier. Not because you are forcing yourself, but because you are finally addressing the real problem. So the next time when you find yourself standing in front of the fridge, when you are actually not hungry, instead of criticizing yourself, ask yourself this question: what am I really hungry for? You might be surprised by the answer. And if this video resonated with you, let me know in the comments. What emotion triggers your eating most often? Is it stress? Is it boredom? Loneliness? Overwhelm? I would love to hear from you. And if you are a woman over 40 who wants to lose weight without relying on yet another diet, make sure you subscribe, because next week we are going to talk about why identity change is more powerful than anything else when it comes to creating a lasting change. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in my next video.